It all started back in 2017 when I went to Vegas. But while I was there, I was at a lot of conferences and I actually didn't get a chance to get down to the floor. So on my last day there, I had $100 and I went down to the roulette table and I put $100 on black. And I said if I win twice in a row, I would be able to forge this. Black came up twice in a row. And that's how I was able to turn $100 into $300 to be able to forge this Benchmade. And since that time, it's been my favorite knife. I absolutely love this. I think it's a near perfect knife. But what if I told you that Benchmade have just released an even better knife, even more perfect? Let's run through it. I want to talk through why this is my new favorite Benchmade and that this one gets knocked into second place. How's it going, folks? My name's Marcus and welcome back to the channel. On this channel I talk about all things EDC, technology, and anything that can help me live a balanced, productive, happier life. So I want to run through a couple of the things that I really like about this knife, why that stayed as my favorite knife all this time, and a couple of things that I wish were different, and maybe this new knife has those for me. So the first thing is, it's got anodized aluminium scales and it makes them soft. It makes them, there's enough grip there that you can hold the knife properly, but it also feels soft in the hand. It's a really unique feeling knife. It's much better than all of the other scales that I have on my other knives. The other thing that it has is this purple tone in between the two green scales, and it just really sets it off. For some reason, even though it's kind of a tacky clash of colors, it makes this knife incredibly distinguished and incredibly classy. I really like it for that reason. It does look like a tactical knife, which typically is not the type of knife I like to go for. I do typically prefer what you'd call maybe gentleman's knife, like the Civivi Elementum. This is a big favorite of mine. I carry this knife a lot because it's kind of, it doesn't look tactical, it doesn't look too aggressive. Another type of knife that I like to bring with me is this Spyderco. It's my Spyderco Cat. But those two knives don't stack up at all compared to how much I love this Benchmade Osborne 940. Benchmade is notorious for making high quality knives, really high precision knives, and this is no exception. When it came out of the box, it didn't need any work, didn't need any oiling, and it just dropped absolutely perfectly and flicked beautifully straight out of the box. So that's a real credit to Benchmade, and you know when you're buying from Benchmade you're going to be getting that quality. One of the things I don't like about it is the clip. I'm a big fan of deep carry pocket clips, and this clip is just not up to the same level of quality as actually the rest of the knife. This is a steel clip and it chips the paint very, very quickly. I've been wearing this for a couple of years and I've chipped the paint off straight away, but I do try and take care of it. But this clip is really not up to standard. I have tried to put on a couple of aftermarket deep carry clips, but I've never found one that was tight enough to catch to my pocket, so it was a little bit loose on the spring, or just didn't look good when I put it on the knife. So let's talk a little bit about the steel. So this is SV30 steel, which is a very, very hard steel. The shape of the blade is called a reverse tanto blade. So typically knife blades, as they come to the end of the knife, they get thinner and they taper, and it becomes a weak spot on the knife. The point is actually the weakest spot. But on the reverse tanto blade, you can see on this knife, it's actually thicker as you get down towards the blade. So it makes for an incredibly rugged knife. I've seen videos of people punching these through car bonnets on cars. I don't know why you'd need to do that, but these are really, really strong tips on these blades. But it also, with this blade, is one of the things that I don't like about it. It's a 3.4 inch blade and it's just a little bit too long for me to carry here. This is a blade that does make people uncomfortable. It's just on the slightly long side. It's also a full size handle, which I like for using around my garage or for actually getting work done. You can get a real grip on this knife, but having a full size handle and a 3.4 inch blade really does make it a slightly more intimidating knife, and that's really not the purpose of this. I use this for opening boxes, cutting string, things like that. This is not intended to be intimidating. In fact, far from it. I'd rather people didn't notice I had it when I was using it for things. Which brings me on to my new knife. Why is this knife so exciting to me? So Benchmade have brought out a mini Osborne. This is just apparently exactly like this Osborne 940, except they call it the 945 Mini. Now the Mini is a slightly shorter blade, a slightly shorter handle, but has still got the same design characteristics, still the SV30 steel, still the tanto blade, and I'm really excited about it. So let's get it open. So all of the Benchmade blades, when they arrive, come in this little blade cleaning sheath. I have them for my other knives. They're great, help you keep your knives nice and clean. I like to keep the Benchmade boxes as well, if ever I do sell them, although so far I've not managed to sell any of them. Look at this knife. That is absolutely beautiful. So just by comparison, this is the difference in size between these two knives. One has a full size handle, one is slightly smaller. Whoop, and that's how I damage my knives. This is what they look like on the back. So they do have a very slightly different clip. The Benchmade Osborne 940 has got Benchmade grooved in its clip. This does feel like a steel clip also, but it's slightly different. Doesn't have the Benchmade markings on it, but it is really, really cool. Okay, so there are some little differences with it. So in between the scales here on the Benchmade Osborne 940, there's a full length of purple there, whereas here you can just see the spacers are purple. So they have made some changes. There are design changes to this. It's not just an exact scale down replica of it, and I can see that there are some small changes. And I'm going to run through these as I go, but let's see how it flicks. This is the first time I've opened this knife. Look at that. That is a beautiful knife, and that is not an intimidating knife. That's exactly what I've been looking for. So I can feel it. The handle feels the same. The anodized aluminium handle feels exactly the same. The purple, I wish it did have the purple in between the two scales the whole way down, not just the two spacers, but the two spacers do look classy. Let's see if the locking mechanism drops the same as the other. Beautiful. In fact, the spring on that is even a slight little bit tighter than my other one, which is good. I don't want it opening in my pocket by accident. So, absolutely beautiful knife. So my first impressions. Let's hold it up against the big brother. So you can see it is significantly smaller. That's a shorter knife. Putting those on the table and going through it, it's a much shorter knife. In terms of weight, it's definitely a lighter knife, obviously, because it's smaller, but it doesn't feel flimsy. These are not heavy knives to start with, but there's a significant weight to it, and I would say that it's a really well balanced knife for a small knife of its size. They've done a really good job of balancing the scales versus the blade on that. One of the things about this knife is that this is absolutely beautifully balanced, but they seem to have the pivot point for that balance to be the same distance on both knives, which is incredibly impressive. Now, this reverse tanto blade is not significantly shorter. I think it's a 2.8 inch blade as opposed to a 3.4 inch blade, but it really does make the difference in terms of how intimidating it is, and that combined with the shorter scales, the shorter handle, mean that it's just a small knife that you can carry around your pocket. And this is going to become my daily driver. Unfortunately, it means the Osborne 940 gets relegated to being in my knife collection. It will still be in heavy use. It's my most used knife, but it means this is the knife that I will carry on with me in my pocket everywhere I go. And I'll do a review on this maybe when I've had it for maybe a month or two, just to see is it exactly as good as I hoped it would be. But I can tell already, new favorite knife. Thanks for watching.